Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You made it for another trip, another round of information. You got DanK here as your host, and we've got our great crack crew here to filming our show, and we're going to have it on Thursday nights Wednesday night and Thursday morning. So be sure and get a look at it and get that into your schedule, because we've got some good information. This evening, or this morning, depending on when you're watching this, I want to tell you about the Oregon Cannabis Connection paper. It's the 4th edition now. Let's see, 4th edition, maybe it's the 5th. It says Volume 2, Issue 1. Anyway, this is locally, I say locally, the state of Oregon produced newspaper, and they've had some good articles in the past on our Hemp Fest. They were vendors at our Hemp Fest last year. And I want to talk to them and hoping that they will be sponsors this year in the Emerald Empire Hemp Fest. So we'll see how that works out. But it's a great paper, and it's got all the cannabis news about Oregon. And there's many, many things in here that you'll see and read and hear about that you'll never see in any other paper in the state of Oregon. I'll guarantee you that. We had an article here on the 2010 Oregon Cannabis Awards. We had a report on that in the previous show. That's the Oregon Normal Cannabis Awards that they have in the beginning of December each year. And that was held at the world famous Cannabis Cafe in Portland, which I went to a couple weeks ago. That was an interesting experience. You go in and show your MMP card. They ask you for a $10 entry fee, which is good for the day, so I guess you get unlimited access for that day. It's downstairs, it's in a basement, and very nice, a lot of room. They've had a stage there and a game room. They have a bar set up and a big jar, kind of a jar, bowl kind of thing, and people donate medicine and to the jar, and then you go up to the bar and put your piece on or whatever you use on the bar, and they fill it for you, and you can consume it there and share it with your friends or new friends that you meet. So it's a neat facility. Of course, again, you have to have the Oregon medical marijuana card to get in, but they have special nights, karaoke nights, and different things like that, activities going on. And that's at 322 Southeast 82nd. And you can get information on that if you go to the OregonNormal.org website. It's OR-normal without an A.org website. And you can find out about the cafe. And that's where the Cannabis Awards was held. In the past, they've used a public building. This is nice that they've got their own building to hold that in. And also, a good article on the M Project. We've had Troy here on the show before. The M Project is a rating system for marijuana for patients, medical personnel. It's a universal language that everyone can understand to describe how each strain is. And they've been on the show before and will be on again, no doubt. It's really interesting. At first, it was a little confusing when I had to go to 2 or 3 presentations before I finally got the grasp of it, but but it's quite a system, and I think it's something that's really needed. So medical marijuana patients need to know how different medicines act. Some people need the pain-killing aspect of some of the strains. Other people need the anti-nausea. So there's just all different needs and such. Also, they talk about the Oregon Cannavention that we've been working on. This has started out to be a statewide meeting of the cannabis law reform activists, but it evolved into an event that will be happening now in Portland. It'll be 3 days in October, and the dates haven't been set yet. But it'd be basically a hemp expo. There'll be a lot of vendors, information, seminars, panels. And we'll say, of course, at the time of year, it'll be an indoor event. So it is something to look forward to. It is exactly what we envisioned when we started out, but I think it will be a good thing once it evolves. And of course, the Oregon legislature is in session. As always, I like to say, when the legislation is in session, nobody's safe. And now that they're meeting yearly, it's even worse. We've got a great person here by the name of Robert Wolf that's helping us out on our email list, our activist email list, on keeping track of the legislature. And he's written an article here. Some of the bills it's just, you know, when you first look at them, you think, how can anybody come up with such a stupid idea? But that's our politicians. Those are the ones we elect. Reduces amount of usable, this is House Bill 3093 by Representative Hicks. Reduces amount of usable medical marijuana that a person may possess to 1 ounce. Applies to all cardholders. And it goes on and it gets worse. But anyway, these are some of the bills that are being considered, and hopefully most of these never see the light of day. But we do have a law enforcement lobby that's working very hard trying to take down the OMA program, or OMMP program. And that's a fact. It's not some radical, it's a fact. And we need more people to keep an eye on them. These Southern Oregon I can't think of the name of them, but yeah, the group down in Southern Oregon, the CHCH Foundation, got together with the Southern Oregon Normal, and they had their own cannabis cup. So that's 2 that are happening yearly in the state of Oregon alone. The next cannabis cup that we're talking about doing here locally, we're talking about doing a cannabis cup where everybody has the same strain. Instead of each grower submitting their own strain in a competition, everybody will start with a lovely, so to speak, a level playing field, and everybody has a plant from the same strain, and then see how each person's technique comes out, how it produces. So that's an exciting idea. I'm certainly looking forward to that, seeing how it works out. If you're interested in that, if you're a grower and interested, or if you're a patient and would like to be a judge, that's a possibility too. Very reasonable to do. So call us at our, you can get a hold of us, our email. You can always get a hold of me at dankbagman at eugenecannabis.org, or any of the email addresses you see during the show. But it's a lot of fun. Of course, the competition is already done when they have these presentations. The competition itself takes at least 45 days because each judge is given a sample of each strain. So, for instance, if you had, say, 28 or 30 strains, it's going to take you, most people, at least a month to figure out. At least in my case, I would, because each day you need to try something different in the beginning of the day. But anyway, it gives you plenty of time to judge them. So, but again, if you need information, just let us know. We also had the article here we read on the show about the medical marijuana. People being harassed and denied gun permits, concealed gun permits, because of being a medical marijuana card holder. Well, that's going to the Oregon Supreme Court. And it's interesting, the ads you see in this too. I always joke that these are ads in these papers that you never see anywhere else, especially the ones out of California. They're even, I don't know, more shocking. You'll see ads with a coupon, free 1/8, free eighth when you buy a certain amount of medicine. Bring this coupon in for a free eighth. It's not a coupon you see just every day. But anyway, this is a great paper, and like I said, Oregon Green Free has advertisements. There's a lot of people we know and a lot of groups we know. Photos of activists that we work with. And it's just a great way to spread the word and get the word out. If you'd like a copy of this, again, get a hold of us through our email addresses. You can go to the Voter Power, the easiest way and the quickest way would be to go to the Voter Power office at 687 River Avenue. At 687 River Avenue, Wednesday or Thursday afternoon. And it's confusing because the hours are different, but it's Wednesday is 5 to 7, Thursday it's 4 to 6. Basically, if you go, be sure and be there right at 5 o'clock. Either day you'll make it. So, but you can pick up a free copy of this paper here, as well as the I'm trying to think of it. The Oregon or the California paper. I've forgotten something leaf. Anyway, it's a great newspaper also. Even though it's California information, it's still extremely interesting, and it's good to see what's going on down in California. There's articles written by Ed Rosenthal, Why I Work for the DEA. So that'll be an interesting article. I haven't had a chance to review it yet. But, and then it's interesting how you see more and more smoke shops advertising. I remember a time in Springfield when the smoke shop wouldn't, there in Springfield, it used to be in Springfield, they wouldn't even let you put a poster up if it had a pot leaf on it. They didn't want anything to do with pot, drugs, or anything else, anything in the store, which I always thought was kind of comical. But anyway, recipes too, by the way. Chili con carne, hash yogurt, and fettuccine pot Fredo. And the best peanut butter cookies recipes. So these are all recipes available in the current issue. And again, like I said, it's free, just for you to pick it up. Our friend Jen and Mike, Sony Girl Gardens, I've got quite an article in here. This one's called Growing Your Crop in Only 9 Weeks, Part 2. So there's information how to speed up your production right there. And again, it's just free for the picking. An article on soil recycling by Mr. Fixit, a well-known activist of the Oregon Green Free, very experienced. And I know that's... I remember some commercial growers getting in trouble trying to dispose of the growing medium. I mean, you think about it, somebody's large production, it can end up being a lot of dirt, and what do you do with it? How do you hide it? It could be a problem. But it's interesting how new places keep popping up. Here we have the Cannabis Community Center, which is in Southern Oregon. It's in Southern Oregon, in Medford. Patient Resource Center in Central Oregon. It's just it's incredible. So anyway, if you want to copy this paper, be sure and come by the Voter Power Office. It's 687 River Avenue. It's not River Road now, it's River Avenue. It runs parallel with Beltline. And say Wednesdays and Thursdays are your best time. Say be there at 5 o'clock sharp. So thanks for coming in, and I hope you could use the information we provided you, and please avail yourself of opportunities that we've talked to you about, including our Just Say No flyer. We can send that to you too. Just send an email and we'll send it to you. Information you need to know. So thanks a lot.
Since 1998, when medical marijuana use became legal in Oregon, the number of cardholders in the state has swelled. As of last month, there are over 38,000 legal patients, and the number grows every day. It's always been and will continue to be a controversial medicine, but it may be gaining ground, especially in our historically conservative part of the state. Case in point, within the past 3 months, Central Oregon has seen at least 5 medical marijuana clinics or clubs set up shop here. And as we found, there was at first outcry, then indifference, and now it seems acceptance.
Just like this. Hold it under my tongue, and within minutes the muscle spasm's going to go away.
Meet 66-year-old Sandy Burbank of Hood River. She may be perhaps one of Oregon's very first medical marijuana cardholders. That's because she helped write the legislation that became the law we have today. Burbank has been a medical marijuana advocate ever since she tried it in college.
This is a salve, and it's made with coconut oil and cannabis, that's all.
She says she's always had severe anxiety, suffers from injuries she got in a car crash, and now
I have arthritis, and so I rub it on. When I found I could smoke cannabis and get that instant calm down that I would feel, I also noticed that it made my pain, I would say it turns the volume down a little bit.
Burbank is also one of the 7 founding women of MAMA, Mothers Against Misuse and Abuse. In Portland and the Dalles, MAMA is a not-for-profit clinic that helps new patients connect with legal growers, schedules doctor's visits to see if someone is a candidate, holds growing classes, and yes, they smoke and eat it together in a tightly restricted area and time. And 2 weeks ago, MAMA expanded to Bend.
Mama looked at it as a wonderful opportunity to teach people how to be careful with cannabis. Like any other drug, like aspirin, ibuprofen, methadone, morphine, all the different drugs, cannabis can have problems as well.
Other than eating too much of it, Burbank says it's helping to solve more problems than it's creating. For many folks suffering, the allure of marijuana is simply the idea of getting off addicting and strong prescription drugs. Candidates must have physician records that show they suffer from specific ailments to be considered. Take a drive down Northeast Division Street in Bend, and they may be hard to spot at first. Two new cannabis clubs and another medical marijuana help clinic just yards apart. Since voters shot down Measure 74 in November, dispensaries like California has, where patients can go and buy their medicine, are still illegal in our state. In fact, any exchange of money for the medicine is illegal, and you're on your own to get it. Oregon's program doesn't have a list of growers, won't give you advice on how to grow it yourself, and won't give you seeds or starter plants. Some patients say they're forced to hit the streets and buy it the old-fashioned way, but others simply now go to a clinic and meet up with a state-registered grower and work out an agreement. However, cannabis clubs similar to Central Oregon Alternative Therapy or the Herb Center usually work by patients paying a membership fee, setting up an appointment, then under strict rules so as not to violate the law, they can walk out with medicine.
It's going to impact our business and our image, and the proximity is just too close for us.
That was back in December when surrounding Division Street business owners were fearful of what it would do to their reputation. Now most of those businesses have changed their minds about their neighbors.
I don't want to be followed home or think that, oh, I got a whole bunch of medicine at home or something like that is why I don't want to be on camera.
Brian was going to be one of those neighbors. He and wife Laura just started the Patient Resource Center. They were close to setting up a clinic on Division Street until they heard 3 others were already in the works. Now they run a phone line out of their home, helping callers with information and driving discreetly to a patient's home to deliver growers excess medicine that Brian says is free of charge and given purely out of compassion.
A lot of calls actually. Bend, Prineville this morning, Lapine last night. I mean, we have MS patients and fibromyalgia patients that it helps them sleep through the night, and it's amazing.
This couple agrees Central Oregon is becoming more accepting of this age-old form of medicine.
The need is stronger than the means of the controversy. There's more and more people becoming patients, and there's more and more need for this. So that is why these locations have opened up.
The next hurdle for medical marijuana patients is the issue of how to get their medicine easier. But before that happens, Oregon lawmakers are meeting this Wednesday in Salem to talk about House Bill 2982. That bill would require a background check on all existing medical marijuana cardholders, and it would kick out or deny new cardholders with a drug-related felony conviction. Medical marijuana supporters are planning a rally on the Capitol steps at 1 o'clock Wednesday to protest.
Police used an undercover informant wired with a recording device during a 3-month investigation that led to raids last week at 3 medical marijuana clinics in Grants Pass. According to police affidavits filed in Josephine County Circuit Court, the informant repeatedly went into each clinic, asked about marijuana, and walked out with cannabis at above street-level prices. The raids netted 7 arrests of people working at the centers, including, most notably, former strip club owner Richard Larry Lacey of the Grants Pass Compassion Center. Lacey of Wolf Creek declined to comment other than to say medical marijuana patients are suffering with his center's closure. Lacey's home is a grow site for 10 patients, police said. Police say Lacey agreed to sell the informant several pounds of marijuana. The informant was told by several people at Grants Pass Compassion Center that the price of marijuana was $10 per gram. That works out to about $4,500 a pound, compared with the average street price of $2,000 to $2,400 per pound. Police say Donald Dobbs of Merlin, the operator of Buds Forever, offered to sell up to 1.5 pounds of marijuana to the informant. Police said Dobbs also offered marijuana for a donation. The informant paid about $10 per gram. On Monday, Dobbs told the Daily Courier, quote, "I never sold a pound to nobody. I was just telling the guy what it was costing me. I have a grower in California." Les Johnston lives in rural Jackson County and worked at the Bridge Street Compassion Center. Affidavits indicate that he talked with the informant about, quote, larger amounts of marijuana. All of those arrested in the raids are charged with illegal delivery of marijuana. Oregon State Police Lieutenant Darren Lux said the raids on Thursday involved about 50 officers putting in 400-plus hours searching the centers and the homes of 5 people connected to the clinics. Turn your unneeded items into cash with a Daily Courier classified ad. Call 474-3711 today.
So has anyone tested it lately? Has anyone planted a small plot? Has the state actually stood up and said, we'll take on the feds?
No. Well, first of all, how are you going to get the seed without a DEA permit to import? Okay, and a whole lot of paperwork with the Department of Agriculture on both sides of the border and such. So, I mean, that's the first thing that puts us in handcuffs. Is even with state approval, we still need the DEA to at least cooperate in the importation that it's going to start with. Now, okay, assume you had the seeds, you still got all these problems of getting the DEA permit, and I think it's probably up to $1,600, $1,800.
More. It's more like
$2,500. Yeah. I mean, when we did it years ago, it was $800 and it was $200 when we first
non-refundable.
Yes, and if you get turned down, you can never get one again. And 100 rules like that, where the DEA is trying to regulate the thickness of the pins on the doors of the facility. Well, wait a minute, this is a farm, it doesn't have doors. Well, you gotta have doors. And a 10-foot fence with the 2-foot angle bars and the 24-hour security and the guard protocols. And isn't that, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. See, this goes back with me to 1975 when we first applied for one of these DEA licenses for a company called Plant Hope. And we had a PhD chemist who was able, we actually did it. We got everything approved for him to have a Schedule I license, and then we had to get the facility. And so we bought an old hospital, and the walls were like 3 foot thick, the DEA like that. And we put this big, thick door on it with, regulated pins and all that stuff. And we thought it was perfect. And they came and they said, "Wait a minute, this isn't right. This is safe, but you need a safe within the safe." And so, we ended up having to buy a freezer with a big, thick lock on it to be able to satisfy the DEA that we had a safe within our safe, because that's part of how the control protocols go. And you have to, and this doesn't apply to a farm, and the DEA has no business regulating farmers. This is really a Department of Agriculture and a Food and Drug Administration issue, and not a DEA issue. Now, we spent years as the Hemp Industries Association litigating the issue of whether the DEA had jurisdiction over hemp products once they hit the border, and the answer is no. 13 days after 9/11, the DEA used the vacuum of no news and total patriotism to do things like tell people here in Oregon that they couldn't have physician-assisted suicide. And one of those things that they pushed down our throats in those few days after 9/11 was, oh, we've changed our interpretation of the law, and industrial hemp is for human consumption is now illegal, which for me meant that everything I had in my basement or my inventory that to me was worth $160,000 was instantly now a Schedule I controlled substance, and it didn't take very much of it. We figured out it was like 40 bottles of hemp oil were enough to get you the death penalty under U.S. law, because, I mean, we're talking a tiny little bit of THC in there, maybe 0.00003% THC in the oil, but that oil was still a mixture of THC. It's kind of like the acid in the paper, the weight of the paper or the carrier. So the oil's the carrier, and the way the DEA was interpreting the law, just 4 cases of hemp oil were enough that you had poundage necessary to get you the death penalty under law. So we were able to organize ourselves as a hemp industry really well, especially with the help of Dr. Bronner's, and David Bronner gets great credit for this because, you know, for a Harvard business guy, he sure learned the law fast and was telling the lawyers what the law was within a few weeks. And we had to take it up to appeals court twice. It's very difficult to appeal agency decisions to the courts, and we were able to successfully do it twice to make industrial hemp foods legal in this country in a matter for the FDA to regulate. And in the meantime, we now see hemp foods in every health food store and every grocery store. Now you're going to find hemp stuff, and it's only begun. The problem is that the industry is entirely out of Canada, and the Canadians have done really well with it, and they organized to allow industrial hemp in 1998, and now we're 13 harvests later and there hasn't been any embarrassment. Their cops are able to tell the difference between what's industrial hemp and what isn't industrial hemp without any problems, and somehow this country feels its policemen aren't as capable, I guess, you know?
It's ridiculous that after all this time and all the restrictions that they put on it back in the old days are still in effect. When we have a perfect working model right across the border, and it's Canada. And Canada, to their credit, has not bent to the wishes of the U.S. government to stop doing it. They're an independent country. A lot of countries south of the border are afraid to lose their favored trade status. Yeah, in fact, I don't know if Canada's in jeopardy of that, or they just there's a bond with Canada that maybe that's not a threat to them, because you can't grow it in Latin America, South America, and the U.S. will put money on it.
We had meetings with the Canadian Trade Council in Washington, D.C. when the U.S. was under a hemp embargo in the years after 9/11, year 2001, 2002. And the Canadian government was, you know, putting in diplomatic protests about how the United States government was treating its farmers. It's better now. Things get across the border without a problem. But I don't like the way the United States government is treating our farmers.